I feel like the more that we record these at home, people are going to realize how much I wear the same clothes all the time.
I
think I've worn the sweater jacket in like every episode we've done.
This past Monday, I had the thought getting Bricks ready for school. I thought, I need to change my pants because I don't want them to see me wear the same pair of pants all this week that they saw me wear all last week. I think I wore the same pair of sweatpants. Like I don't know why this is my style right now. I feel like I'm like a character from Pokemon Go, but I wear sweatpants and then I pull them up to just under my knees.
I see that. I kind of like it. It's your style.
Well, I actually went shopping for some pants that are just knee-length sweatpants because that's the only way I wear them. But last week, the pair I wore, the elastic that is supposed to be around the ankles was so stretched out that it would just fall off my calf. Like I would pull it up and it would just, I'm like, it's time for these to not be on my body anymore. Oh, quarantine. I just admitted that to the whole world.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Exactly. All right. Episode 7 and part 2.
Part 2, I'm going to do the intro anyway. Welcome to the True North Podcast, where two practicing light workers get together for 2 hours every other week to continue an ongoing conversation about wholeness and healing for the body and mind to help you live as your true self and follow your true north. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Abby.
You did not say good morning last time.
I did, but it might not have come through. I think I kind of interrupted you. You were saying something, but good morning.
Thank you. I very much appreciate that. Now we can begin. Okay, so picking up where we left off, we have a couple more things. We have a lot more things on the docket.
Yes, we do.
I'm looking at the docket. I should change it to the docket. We are going to talk about, growth. You wanted to talk about growth, too. That was one of the things that you brought up.
Yeah, because you've mentioned a couple of things about things you're going through, and you just, I don't know if there was anything in particular that you wanted to share that was enlightening or helpful or anything. And if not, we will move on. There's lots of other things.
My relationship with growth has drastically changed over the last couple of weeks. Through a couple of conversations I've had with a couple of friends. Oh, Abby!
Whoa! What was that?
I think I may have voxed you about this.
Okay.
Maybe. But I believe I have had an interaction with another one of my guides.
No, you didn't. I did not get a vox about this, and I'm glad you mentioned it because now I'm wondering, do you have 7 or do you have 4?
No,
but tell me more.
No. Okay. So.
What?
And again, the skeptic's mind in me says, okay, is this just my reticular activating system trying to put together things that I wasn't aware of before? Because I only was settled on having one guide, and I only ever heard one voice. And now this other thing is happening as soon as soon on the heels of me getting the idea planted in my brain that I may have more than one guide. Maybe I'm just making up a story that this is another guide because I never thought of it as a possibility before. Now that I do, bam, it's a thing that's becoming a thing.
Or it could be that you put yourself that you only had one, and so you couldn't expand to the idea that you had more.
Or
so they made themselves available.
Well, I went to my one guide. I can't even say it my guide anymore. I went to my Blue Rhino and I was like, okay, help me figure this out. And she said, maybe we are all conspiring to co-write your story with you. And we wanted to make sure that before guide number 2 reached out, you were already equipped with a framework for understanding that experience. So it might just be that we introduced you to the concept just in time for you to make contact and know what was actually happening. So, but this cat is really, do you see him? Can you see him with my 18 millimeter moment lens? He is all up in my business. He's only trying to rub on my equipment. Okay, let me see if I can just slide his outer body into my lap and put him in a chokehold. Okay, so I was on the phone with a dear friend talking about growth, talking about my own dissatisfaction at any moment in time with where I am because I'm always trying to move to the next evolution of what I will become. I have been told by my guide that my name is Becoming. Like that's what I am. And the way that I'm wired, I'm never satisfied with myself. I always want to grow into the next version of myself. Anytime I look at a past version of myself, my first emotion is contempt because look at how immature that asshole was.
Ah,
to the point where I kind of fully realized that in 10 years, I'm going to look back on 34-year-old me and be like, he didn't know anything. But now I, it's just, and so I'm aware of that. But that's my first response to any younger version of myself because I just hold contempt for people who are less developed than they could be. And I forget that at any moment in time, I was as developed as I needed to be.
Yes.
But because I'm comparing them to now, they seem really immature.
Sure.
The whole Ray Ron thing.
Yes.
And so then what I do is I'm constantly trying to de-Ray Ronify myself. I am constantly living in this attitude of I am someone else's Ray Ron. I am the Ray Ron of a future version of myself. And knowing how much I know, looking back, I needed to outgrow Ray Ron, I am then trying to outgrow myself. And this friend was like, you just need to calm down. like really trying to convince me that I have everything I need. Like, what would it look like for you to accept that you are everything you need to be?
Because aren't those identities false?
Yes. Yes. Well, I mean, it's also an illusion that to not have grown is wrong or bad. And so she was like, what if you just were exactly everything that you needed to be? And I was like, well, then I wouldn't grow anymore. I would be done growing because why grow if you're everything you need to be? And then I have to find it. I have to read it. I put it somewhere. I actually sent it to her on Facebook Messenger, and I was like, I'm just putting this here because I have nowhere else to put it. Hold on. Bear, get. I swear he's going to unplug something. Cat farts are worse than dog farts.
We're talking about spirit guides, and that's what came out of your
Well,
mouth.
he just crop dusted on my lap. He just he was here long enough to just pull that shit. Hold on. Where is it? I need to find it. I have it written down. Okay, I have it written down in a couple places then. It's worth. Just hang with me for a second. Because it's so.
Is this from your new guide?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh no, I can't find it. Where is it? Where did I write it down? Did I text it to her? Because I really want to read this verbatim.
Okay.
Nope, not there. Not there. See, now I'm panicking because I feel like I'm holding up the whole podcast. Breathe. This is actually worth the wait. Well, shit. I don't know where I put it.
I now need to go find out what my guide is naming me.
Ask your guide what your name is?
Yeah. Your name is Becoming. This is interesting.
Becoming.
I'm like, what would I be called? Would I
Well,
even
it's
have
funny
a name?
because I have a friend who also has a spirit guide who she discovered after I told her how I discovered mine. Mm-hmm. And we both decided to ask our guides at the same time what our names were. Mine was Becoming. Mm-hmm. Hers was Enough.
Whoa.
Your name is Enough. And so together we are Becoming Enough. And then we looked it up, and that is the name of a book that we both read. We bought and read and book clubbed over.
Interesting.
Yeah! Okay, here it is. So, I'm saying, if I was everything I needed to be, I wouldn't grow anymore, right? Mm-hmm. And I said it with such finality. I said it with such assurity. Like this is just how the world works.
Like, I know this.
And then I started talking. And here's what I said.
Okay.
When a plant is a seedling, it is not yet time for it to be an oak. And when it is an oak, it is no longer time for it to be a seedling. But it is never wrong for the seedling not to be an oak. When it is a seedling, that's all it's supposed to be. And it is a whole seedling. Nothing is lacking, nothing is incomplete. It has everything it needs. It does not have all of the parts of the oak yet it has all of the parts of itself. #RTA, yes I will. When a plant is a seedling, it is not yet time for it to be an oak. And when it is an oak, it is no longer time for it to be a seedling. But it is never wrong for the seedling not to be an oak. When it is a seedling, that's all it's supposed to be. And it is a whole seedling. Nothing is lacking, nothing is incomplete, it has everything it needs. It does not have all of the parts of the oak yet. Yet, it has all of the parts of itself.
Holy crap, that's an amazing lesson.
And I was saying it as though I was reading it. She thought I was reading it. And I recognized very clearly that those words were not coming from me, they were coming through me.
Did you hear a voice, see a color?
No. Nope. I had, what I felt in my body is the same thing I feel when someone is telling me something I already know and I want them to get it over with. It was like an impatience. It was like got it, loud and clear, don't need to beat the dead horse, let's move on, message received. Mm-hmm. But then it kept talking, but it was my face. My mouth was forming the words. And I was just, as soon as it happened, Abby, I got this very clear sense that is one of my guides and that I just fucking channeled him.
Him.
It was a him. And that he speaks to me through me.
So this is going to be fun to play with because now... is that how it's going to, is that how he's going to present himself? Or will there ever be a point where you get to, quote unquote, meet, as in you have a vision or a color or a symbol of
I don't know.
him?
I've already played with the idea that my rhino guide is actually an incarnation of me in the past. Like I'm a reincarnation of her. Like she's me, but just like a different lifetime. I've already she hasn't confirmed that, but I just kind of have this idea and she hasn't shot it down. She's kind of like let me hold it on to it and try it on for size.
We'll see. Uh-huh.
But I mean, when I had that experience, I was just like, oh
so how long ago was this?
This was a couple weeks ago.
Okay, so here's what happens to me when especially this doesn't happen as much anymore. I wish it would. But when I first discovered my guides and how they communicated with me and realizing this voice in my head wasn't just, some part of me. But I would get that message or I would see that sign and I would all of a sudden get so excited that I just couldn't wait for the next message or I couldn't wait for her to talk to me again. And so all of a sudden my energy would become incredibly desperate. Please, when am I going to get the next message? I'm ready. I want to hear it, but I'm not. I'm just too not chill enough about it. And so are you in that place right now? How are you staying open enough to just be all right, okay, let's see if this happens again?
I think reading Eckhart Tolle has had a lot to do with that. I'm really, 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 lately I've been cultivating a practice of being with what is, being with here, and being with now.
This is your hour practice, right?
Yeah, every hour on the hour, I have the reminder, check in with my body, look around. But it's began to permeate my response to my circumstances.
I like how you said response.
All three of us were at Home Depot. And, with the quarantine, they have one entrance, and that's the only entrance because they have to count the number of people who are in the building. Mm-hmm. And so we park by that entrance, and then she says, oh, but we're only here for garden stuff, and I think that has its own entrance. So I said, well, I already unbuckled the baby, so why don't you let me and Bricks off? We'll go hang out. We'll go in the entrance. If you want to go park by the garden, then we'll meet you there when we come out. Mm-hmm. But then I guess that we had a little bit of a miscommunication. So Bricks and I were standing there by the entrance under that tent thing, waiting for her to park the car and then come meet us. Because I don't remember why, but we were just sitting there waiting. Mm-hmm. And she didn't know we were waiting. So she was waiting over there for me. I was waiting over there for her. So we're just kind of at this non-communicative standoff. And at no point that I ever attached to the outcome of finding her soon or her coming to meet me. Like, I had the idea that I would eventually see her walking towards us and that we would all go in together. But I don't even think I needed to use patience. Like, patience is when you're just really good at waiting for something that you expect to happen soon. And it wasn't even that. I just existed. I was like, this is what life is right now. And I didn't even have to coach myself into it. I didn't have to decide to make that my mindset. What I found myself doing was asking Bricks about the leaves on the ground and how many colors there were. And so then we're squatting on the ground, and I'm noticing all the different little textures and divots in the concrete and the little places that the paint splattered off of the line that was being drawn. And he was going and getting different colored leaves and putting them all next to each other and making this little mosaic. And there were greens and yellows and oranges and browns and different sizes. And we were looking at the stems and we were putting them together where they fit like a puzzle. And I realized I was listening. I could hear all the cars in the parking lot and all the people walking by. And you could tell the difference between the sound of a person's voice behind a mask and not behind a mask. And you could hear the footsteps. And all of a sudden I just found myself taking in the depth of that moment and realizing that there is an infinite amount of now to be absorbed in this moment. And I didn't let go of the expectation that at some point Glenda I'd see her walking and we would come meet each other and go in the Home Depot. But I wasn't holding my breath for it, like I was just where I was. And being able to experience that with Bricks, I realized that's where he always is.
Yes.
And so I met him where he was, and we were in that space together, and we literally just peered into infinity through the lens of a couple of leaves on a pavement parking lot. And it was just such a beautiful thing. And then, she called and we figured it out and we got together and we got the gardening stuff and we went home. And I let that moment go. I didn't really live in that moment and think, oh, that was so great. But later that night, I was reflecting on the day, and I was like, that was one of the best parts of the day. Maybe not the best part, but it was one of the best parts. And so I think with regards to your original question, how do I not get desperate about the next hit? It's just, if it's happening right now, then it is, and if it's not, then it will.
You're fully embracing your metaphor from last time about, there's a package that's going to arrive and you're simply just waiting. And
it'll arrive when I need it. So then if it's not arriving, I obviously don't need it.
Right.
So what use is it to me anyway? That's kind of where I'm at. And I'm not even trying to find the other two guides. Like, just having the idea that there are four, that's cool. One of them decided to show up. And the way he decided to show up was by speaking to me through me about something that I've struggled with for as long as I can remember struggle. Like, he's been there. It's almost like he was saying, I was there when you were a seedling, and I will be there when you are an oak.
So he was there when you were Rayron.
He was there when I was Rayron. He was there when I was born. He was there before I was born. He's always been there. He's always been walking in step. And then you saying you have four guides was kind of like them saying, okay, let's roll out the red carpet because you're about to introduce yourself. At 34 years old, if you were to participate in the very odd practice of numerology, 34 resolves to the number 7.
It sure does. Oh my gosh. So, goosebumps. Woo!
I'm saying that number just kind of shows up. It just kind of shows up when shit happens. So,
oh my gosh.
So my relationship with growth, with my own growth, it's not that I have been growing. It's that my relationship with my growth has begun. I turned a page on it. Definitely, I'm on a new page. I'm in a new chapter. I'm shedding the old relationship with growth and learning how to wear the new one, which is just, you are growing because growth is life, and that's what life is. That's what we're here to do, and that's something that happens. It's not something you make happen. It's something you allow to happen.
So okay, what I'm hearing you say then is you're intentionally not trying to grow. You're just intentionally being, which is growth.
I'm going to say something that I never thought I would say in public in front of a bunch of people. And
I love it.
This may be a huge turn. You see me like shifting my weight?
I
like
know.
I went from sitting to squatting.
You're ready to
go. because I'm sitting in other people's business thinking, how many people are going to turn this off as soon as I bring this up? when Glenda was pregnant, we went through a hypnobirthing course.
Okay.
And if you don't know what hypnobirthing is, look it up. But there's a lot of things that we talk about in that class. And one of the things was all of the muscles downstairs that help things that are in you come out of you, which is pertinent to giving birth. But one of the things that they talked about was using breath work and exhales as a way of opening up orifices to allow things to naturally flow out instead of crunching all of our muscles to try to push it out. So there's this technique called J breath. I'm trying not to just come out and I'm just going to say it. We were talking about poop. We were talking about poop in the hypnobirthing class. I was just going to say you were actually squatting like people do in other countries. Oh my God, I'm squatting like I'm talking. I'm just like, I'm going to talk about poop. And then my body's already like, okay, now I'm going to go poop. No, but
kids do that too.
I practiced this. Practiced this. As soon as they said it, I was just like, okay, I'm not going to push it out. I'm just going to just let my body do what it's here to do and breathe. And just exhale. And there's something about an exhale that is a release.
Yes.
And then you're also, the actual act is a release in and of itself.
You'll need to watch this video.
And so I'm doing hand motions to show the poop coming out of the butt. So our patrons are going to talk to me about
I love this. No, because you have a point.
I'm making a point. So then I realized in that moment that it is something that my body is designed to do. And that pushing it to make it happen actually causes a lot of strain.
Yes.
Unnecessary strain, and can actually keep it from happening.
Yes.
Whereas if you just focus on your breath, the release part of the breath, the surrender part of your breath, your body will naturally surrender what it was designed to naturally surrender, and you don't even have to get involved. So that was the beginning of me trying to apply that lesson in other non-fecal-centric arenas.
That's the best fucking metaphor I've ever heard in my life.
That's the only one I could think of. But it is so applicable. It's so pertinent right now.
It is. But, that's the best way to learn that lesson. Holy shit, literally.
And I'm telling you, people, if you haven't done this, it totally works. Look up J breath on YouTube. I'm sure there's a tutorial on how to do this, but a very specific type of breath.
Yes.
But so when it comes to growth, I've been straining. I've been giving myself abdominal hernias of the soul, trying to force this growth to happen, trying to make it happen, trying to use my musculature and all of everything I have within me to make things happen, to make this thing happen. And what this second guide has said is it's not something you make happen. It is something that you let happen. And when you let it happen, it will happen as it was always designed to happen. And what you can do to serve yourself while it happens is slow down, relax, and focus on your breath and focus on surrender. So at any point in time, the plant is growing into a bigger, fuller version of that plant. But at that same time, that plant is all it needs to be.
It's I just want to end right there because that was amazing. My energy is so heavy right now. It's I want to sit with this.
I'm still squatting.
You're still squatting. No, when Patrick used to have trouble going when he was little, I would make him squat on the toilet instead of sit
I've
normally.
read some articles lately that say that the squatty potty doesn't actually do anything, that it was all just a big marketing fad. But
no, but look what you're doing.
There are people who their bathroom is just a hole in the floor, and you just have to squat over it.
Go to India; they don't have pooping problems. They all just let their body do it.
But also, I mean, the whole GI and digestive system is a reflection of your body's ability to cope with its emotional material or process its emotional material. So I feel like people who have poopy problems, I wouldn't look at the posture of their.
Well, no, I wouldn't. Yes, true. Yes. But if you're doing that work and then you're doing the posture, we're going to call it the pooping posture.
Pooping posture. It's not a squat anymore.
To get off of this. Yeah.
Every time I'm at the gym, I'm doing squats. I'm just going to go 1 poop, 2 poop. Nobody signed up to talk about poop today on the podcast.
You never know, but it's very
applicable and pertinent and relevant, and it gets the point across.
See, and this is interesting that you say this because, okay, I got to stop saying interesting because, and it's not coincidental. Clearly we are linked, but it is in my sphere of, I don't know what else to call it, thinking, but it's not really thinking, where you plant a seed, but then, and this is what you're saying, this is what your guide said, like you plant your seed, but you don't make it grow. And your seed is your intention, what you want to be. But you don't go then and make it grow. Like, because we're talking about kids today a lot. My son likes to listen to Frog and Toad by Richard Lobel. He like wrote these books in the 70s. And there's one, we listened to him on Audible. And there's one where, I think it's Frog, planted a garden because he wanted to be like Toad, who had a beautiful garden. And he got very frustrated because he planted his seeds and nothing happened. So he would go out to his garden and he'd grow, garden, grow. And he's like yelling at his seeds and like trying to force something to happen because he thought that's how it worked. And so, but like the lesson is like you plant your seed, but you still have to water it. You still have to feed it. But if you sort of nitpick it too much, if you treat it too delicately or too harsh, like there's this fine balance where it's growing on its own. There is no forcing. And that's exactly what your guide is saying.
It wants to grow.
Yes, it's going to grow. And
you're trying to create the best set of circumstances for that growth to happen, but you're not making the growth happen.
Right. So it's like
you can prevent it from happening.
Yes. So is the seed your soul? It's the growth that we're supposed to be learning in this lifetime.
In this lifetime.
And then we are the gardener.
Yeah. Oh, yes. The ego. Because the mind. Because we talked about how the mind is a tool, right? The mind is the part that thinks and the part that does and all that stuff. And so there's one school of thought that's like, get out of the mind. The mind is evil. The mind is a disease. But no, the mind isn't the disease. Identifying as the mind and thinking you are the mind is a disease. But once you transcend that and you realize that you are not your mind, you are not your personality, you are not your ego, you can then, and you become the observer to it. That's the first step in actually being able to then use and wield your mind/ego to cultivate the actual plant, which is your soul, which came here to grow. It is trying to grow. If it's not growing, that's not because you're not growing it. It's because you are stopping it from growing.
Yes.
So stop stopping it. Is the lesson.
So you talked about the ego mind and the soul mind, and the soul mind is the tool and the ego mind is what gets us in trouble. So your soul mind is the gardener, and that's learning to be in that place and then being that observer. It's like, if it needs water and you'll know not to water it too much. It's like you're very aware of helping create the perfect environment.
Yes. And it takes intentionality.
It does.
Observation. You know what's funny is we actually started a garden very recently. Like when we bought the house, it had these big old box gardens in the backyard, and they were just full of soil, and there was nothing in them but weeds. And then there were these planters next to it that had these dead trees, and we've lived here since November. It's May right now, so it's been a while. And for some reason, we just maybe because it's spring, I don't know. I have friends who are all gardening and stuff, and so I just jumped on the bandwagon. But we went and got a bunch of plants. We got a bunch of seeds, and I did not expect to love that garden so much. Not love that I have it, but love it like actively love it. The way you actively love a thing that you are loving, like verb love it. I go out there every morning. I check on it. I'm looking at rain schedules. I'm checking to see if they're overwatered, if they're underwatered, how are they doing? There's bugs in there. I'm getting rid of the bugs. Every time it rains, this bird comes in trying to get the bugs, and it plucks out some of my stuff. And so I'm trying to do all this stuff and just paying attention to what does this kind of plant need? What does this kind of plant need? Are they close enough? Are they far apart enough? Are they complementing each other? And I am so excited every morning to go out and check my plants, and I'm so excited every evening to go out and just enjoy them. And I just realized that
you just described life, how life should be. Like the bugs are the muck people. The bugs are when you're sitting in other people's business. You got
to do some weeding. You got to do some feeding. You
got to do some weeding, some feeding. The excitement, you should always be excited.
You're checking to see. I didn't even know that plant diseases were a thing, but one of them had these spots, and my friend was like, "Well, maybe it's sick." And I was like, "I didn't know plants could get sick." But then, of course, they can get sick. They're living organisms like anything else. They have, nutrient usage, and they have metabolism, and they have waste, and they have reproduction, and so yeah, they can get diseases. And so I'm just learning more about them and
vibrational frequencies. Going back to that, this is going to be funny, but talking to your plants.
Yeah, I talk to them. I totally talk to them.
Yeah, we have a garden.
Like I'm pouring love into them.
Yes. But it's like, what if you treated yourself that way?
Right. Cultivate yourself like a garden.
Yes.
But then you have to actually have a garden to know what it's like to cultivate a garden, because there's so many things I just thought when you're a kid, you put seeds in the ground and you put water on it and some sunlight, and then you have a plant. But there's so many ways that it could go awry. And so you have to be present. You have to be intentional. You have to be attentive. You have to access prior knowledge. You have to be curious. But at the same time, you can't be too attached to a certain outcome, because then if it starts not doing exactly what you want, that's when you start really wrestling with the plant instead of cultivating it. And so
you try to control it.
Right. If
and
it
obviously
doesn't become what you want. Yes. And we have marigolds, and at the very beginning, we transplanted all these into the soil, and they all started dying. Or I thought they were dying because the leaves started wilting and things like that. And then, one of my garden friends was like, maybe it's in shock. And I was like, oh, okay. Again, another thing I never would have thought of, but it totally makes sense. And so, but by that time, the marigolds just looked worse than all the other ones. And every time I would talk verbally about all the flowers, I'd be like, the hibiscus looks good, the sunflowers look good, those marigolds are going to die. And I would just go through every single time. And now they're all, I know you know where I'm going with this. They're all in the same planter, the same rain, the same soil. And guess what?
They're fucking dead.
The fucking marigolds are dead.
Yes.
They're all dead. And I realized the only thing I've said about them is you're going to die.
Yes.
And all the other, even one of them, it had a big old flower, and Briggs broke the flower off. And I was like, that's okay. There'll be another one soon. There were no sprouts. There were no buds. There was just leaves. I had no idea, but I kept saying, there's going to be another flower soon. And now there are two. And they're all super healthy. I got a trellis for the cucumber plant, and its vines are all wrapping around it and everything, and it's everything's working except for the only one that I've singled out and said, you're dead. And now they're all dead. With 3 different marigolds and 3 different potters and 3 different planters, all dead. But everything else in those planters that they share those planters with are thriving.
So I want to point out, because this is a fantastic metaphor. Can listeners in the muck, can you now see how destructive limiting beliefs are and negative self-talk?
Because you're the plant. Again, you're the plant. So if you have negative self-talk towards yourself,
and you're telling yourself, you're calling
what you are.
You will become what you are, what you say. Yes.
Yeah, there's something huge here. Cultivate yourself like a plant. I feel like I just feel like everybody should start gardening. I mean, this is the perfect time, right?
Well, I just got this fantastic idea.
What? Go.
Well, I'm adding to our repertoire of this, what I eventually want to become a full weekend retreat. But right now we're going to start with a day retreat. But friends, we're going to put this on your radar. You will be joining us in Costa Rica in the very near future.
At some point.
But I was just thinking, this is fantastic. We're going to have them plant a plant that they then have to take home.
This is good. That's really good.
Yeah, it's a fun idea. But it's seriously though, I mean, what you're telling yourself has really negative implications. And then, you just proved it. You just proved it. And then
it affects the cellular construction of an organism.
Yes, which is what Emoto was saying in his water studies. That's what he's trying to prove with all these experiments, is that you have that vibrational frequency that's low enough that it will deform your cells, and that's what makes you sick. Wow.
I was actually thinking about this, how it's a combination of what you do in this life and what you did in previous lives and the circumstances that you're born into that have nothing to do with either of those. All culminate in the problems that you bring to people like us. And it's really, really tough to parse through, is this something that you brought into your life? Is it something that happened because life sucks and humans suck and we're in the middle of a bunch of humans? Or is it something that this life has because it's carried over from a previous life? There's no way to know. we talk about healing as you start by going back to the source, but I'm starting to realize that sometimes getting back to the source of a thing is just impossible. And I mean, like going back to my cucumber turned yellow. And I realized that I looked it up and there are a couple of things that could have made it turn yellow. But I don't know what those are. I don't know which one it was. It could have been overwatering. It could have been that it got a virus. It could have been, any number of things that all look the exact same. You have a yellow cucumber. Mm-hmm. It could have just been overripe. I could have just let it go for too long. But none of those change the fact that now I have a yellow cucumber. So what do you do about a yellow cucumber? There's one thing you do. You cut it off. And then, so I learned there that knowing what could cause the next yellow cucumber matters. Mm-hmm. But knowing what caused this one doesn't really help.
No, and you made me think about, again, that balance of positive and negative. Mm-hmm. Because shit doesn't just happen. Bad stuff doesn't just happen. It happens because there has to be a balance. But what you're saying is that the bad stuff's going to happen, but don't get caught up in the attachment to the outcome, that you have to have a green cucumber. Cut it off, be unattached, realize it's a balance.
Learn what made it yellow and understand that there will be more cucumbers.
So that makes me wonder, am I approaching my cucumbers the wrong way?
Well, I think, it's one of those things where you have to have grace and you have to have forgiveness for yourself. And I think it's kind of like going back to waiting in the parking lot. If you're living in the future, then the now is just not going to be something that you're ever content with, ever. Mm-hmm. And then when the now becomes the past, you're going to continue to carry that past into the present. And that gets heavier the longer you carry it. And mm-hmm. then that weighs you down. And it's like carrying a weight everywhere. Your muscles are going to contort around that. And then you're going to have all kinds of body pain. And the same thing happens on a cellular level. Mm-hmm. Perfect example. I told you I had a story about bricks. And when he wakes up, we haven't sleep trained him to put himself to sleep yet. We're still trying to figure that out. He very much still wants us to be there. And we're trying to navigate the balance of training him to not, or just kind of understanding that when he's 16 years old, he's not going to want us to sleep in the bed with him. At some point, it's going to transition, and how much of a role do we need to play in that versus how much of it is just him moving through the phases that he's going to move through, and mm-hmm. how can we facilitate that movement without forcing it, breathe instead of push. And so, but for right now, we're just, I'm just in the bed with him. In his bed with him until he falls asleep, and then I ninja my way out and go back to mine. Or sometimes I just sleep in his bed because his mattress is better than ours. But one night, he just would not go to sleep. He wouldn't go to sleep. And every single thing he could think of to keep himself awake, he did. He didn't want to go to sleep. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that gets him to just, do what I want is to threaten to leave. Because he really wants me there. Mm-hmm. And so, do X, Y, Z, or I'm going to leave. And then all of a sudden he does it. Lay down. Close your eyes. Stop talking. I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave. And then as he got more tired, he got more emotionally vulnerable. And then everything became a tantrum or a crying fit or something like that. And so and then of course, if he starts going and I don't calm him down, then he gets really worked up. And then we have to start all over because now he's not soothed anymore. And so we're back to square one. So it was 3 a.m. I had been in there with him for at least an hour. And he's just wide awake and he's crying about everything. And he wants things that are impossible. He wants to wear his Crocs to bed, but he doesn't want the Crocs to move the blanket when he moves. And so then at some point I just pulled him off and I threw him across the room and he's crying. And I'm like, you stop crying or I'm going to leave. And then he stopped crying. Mm-hmm. And then the next thing that he wanted that was impossible, he started trying to get, I don't even remember what it was. It was he wanted water from his water bottle, but it was empty or something like that. And I wasn't about to leave and go get it because then he would cry while I was gone. But he was just crying about something, but he wasn't throwing a fit. He wasn't throwing a tantrum. He just had a thing that he had felt some type of way about. And then I watched him look at me and then start crying to himself quietly. He turned away from me to cry to himself. And I realized he's hiding the crying. Mm-hmm. Because I've been telling him for the last hour, if you give expression to your emotions, I'm going to leave. You're going to lose me. You will be abandoned. You will lose the one person that you want to be here. You'll be alone if you show emotion. And so he got the message, like message received. And he turned away from me and he silently sobbed to himself. And I was like, I know every parent in their journey has moments where they feel like the worst parent in the world. And that was it for me. Because that was not the lesson I wanted him to learn.
Right.
And I mean, I pushed back pretty hard against toxic masculinity. And I was literally teaching it to him. Don't show emotion or I will leave you.
Right.
And then to see that he picked up on it. And he was like, okay, fine, Dad. I got it. I have to do this on my own.
Yeah.
And so then I said, Briggs, I love you. And he said, no. And so I laid down next to him. I held him close. And I said, do you need to cry? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, then cry. I said, it's always okay to cry. Daddy cries. And I said, I'm crying right now, kid. And then he reached up and he wiped the tears from my eyes. And I did the same to him. And we lay there just crying. And in minutes he was asleep. And there's so much temptation to carry that story around with me as an example of how I am fucking it up. Mm-hmm. You know, it's so easy to go through that story and be like, look at how bad of a dad I am. Look at how I'm teaching him all the wrong lessons. Look at how I'm getting impatient and now he's going to grow up and he's going to have stifled emotions and he's going to be constipated no matter how much he squats. And like all this stuff is going to happen and his emotional landscape is going to be all ruined for the rest of his life because when he was 2 years old, I yelled at him and told him I would abandon him if he cried. And that temptation is so strong. But then you got to remember that this is just one cucumber. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, it turned yellow and you cut it off. And then there will be more cucumbers, and that one was what it was, and there will be more. And you know what I did with that cucumber that I cut off? I cut it open. I grabbed all the seeds. I wrapped them in a wet paper towel. They're in a mason jar. They're all germinating, sitting in my tree so they can catch sunlight. And then the rest of the cucumber I cut up and infused with this water, and I'm drinking my own homegrown cucumber water right now.
Nice.
So, like, there are ways that experiences that tell you that you're a failure can turn into a win. But you have to approach it with this gardening mindset. And you have to let the past be the past and just move on to the next day where there will be another opportunity to water your plants.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that was like the best story for that particular metaphor.
Poop.
And these, I have, okay, so along those lines, a little backstory, I never wanted to be a mother, ever, because, I'll be very wise with my words here. I didn't want to continue a cycle, and I was afraid that I was too similar to other women in my family that I did not want to project that on a child. So for a long time, I did not have a kid. It's one reason why I didn't have Patrick for so long. So I was a geriatric mother, according to the hospital.
What? Did they call you that?
Yes, in my chart, I was a geriatric mother because that
verbiage needs an update.
Seriously? Yeah. So anyway, but my point is,
by a man.
Probably was. So I'm very, very conscious because now 5 years into it, I a lot of those things that I was afraid of have come out in very vulnerable moments. Mm. And my tears that I cried were not only empathy for you, but for my own son. Like, I very much understand and know that feeling. Mm. And for me, it's just stemmed around, I am the very person I never wanted to be. And I just did it.
Right.
And I have shamed him and I have stuffed his emotions and I have, and you're just like, oh my gosh. And then I become very aware of it. And so I did a lot of research as a young parent because I struggled with hormonal issues when he was born, and it was very hard for me to control being that person. Even though I was aware of it, I would very easily fall into who I didn't want to be. And a lot of it was just, I had Hashimoto's, didn't know it. It was untreated, like totally messed up my body. So I did a lot of research, and the one thing that I found, and of course can't quote this book or even who it was, but the thing I heard over and over and over is it's not what happens in that moment, it's what happens after that has a greater impact. And that's what saved me so many times. It's like if you and your spouse have a fight in front of your kid, you actually need to go talk to your kid about that and address it, because then that is heavier than the actual fight. The emotion for that kid that's going to come, the instability, insecurity, fear, whatever they're feeling from seeing the two of you have discord. If you're going and talking, or no, that's not what it was. Let me back up. It's more important for that child to see you two apologize to each other. It's more important for that child to see the resolution than the damage of the actual fight. Same thing of like this situation, like when I lose myself and I say something to him, it is more impactful for what I come back with. And it's usually I have to come back and I have to apologize and tell him, that it is okay to cry. And how did you feel about that when I said that? And like, we talk through it and we go through that. And that is what has, like I share this because whether you have children or not, this situation is relatable, but it's like, if I don't remember that piece, okay. And that's what I'm doing is I'm just thinking about the next cucumber. That apology is just the next, okay, what am I taking from this so that I can grow a better cucumber next time? That's what keeps me from hanging on to that dead yellow cucumber. Because the more I do that, like if I leave it on the plant and I just sort of keep it there, then it's going to infect the rest of the plant.
Right. Or at the very worst, it'll just keep on sucking up resources and there's nothing that's going to come of it.
Right. Because then I'll just start focusing on trying to get the one cucumber back to green and sort of possibly even neglect the rest of the plant. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So you're holding on to, I mean, and that's a huge thing, because how much of our self-talk comes from the past? Negative self-talk.
Oh.
How much of like pick any negative thing you've ever said about yourself.
Yeah, I can tell you exactly where it came from. Yes.
It comes from experiences that exist in the past.
Yep.
And so I think this is also an integral element in fixing that self-talk, is letting the past be in the past. Mm-hmm. Did I mention the I'm going to seem like the biggest Tully fan. Did I talk about the two monks who carried the girl in the last episode?
Refresh my memory. I don't think so. It doesn't sound familiar.
He tells a story of two monks who come across a really muddy path, and there's a girl who wants to cross, but she's wearing a long dress, and so she doesn't want to get mud all in her dress. And so one of the monks picks her up and just carries her across and sets her down, and then they all continue along their way. But part of the monastic practice that these two people have committed themselves to is not to make any physical contact with a woman.
Right. So
then a few hours later, the other monk says to the one that held the girl, he's like, you really shouldn't have done that. You broke the code, and that's not something that you should have done. And the other monk responds, "Oh, you're still carrying her around? I put her down hours ago." Right?
Right.
So how much of what is no longer ours to carry are we still carrying?
Yes.
How many big, fat, yellow cucumbers are still on the vine that we just need to prune and focus on the ones that are still growing? Those are done. They're over. They're gone. They're not now. They're not still happening.
Right.
Like that's a phrase. I can't believe we've gotten this long without saying this. That's something my dad used to say to me all the time.
What?
When I would be freaking out about something that had happened, he would look at me and say, "Is it still happening?" And I would say, "No." And he'd say, "Then why are you acting like it is?"
Uh-huh.
And just that question, just that one little question, is this still happening to you? are those people still saying those things to you? Is that person still in your life? Are they still in a position of authority? Are they still making you feel this way? Is it still, are you still being told that story about yourself?
And that's called story fondling, when you like literally hang on to it and you spin on it and spin on it and spin on it and you don't let it go when it's not happening.
It's not happening anymore.
It's like you're still, yeah.
And that's why part of our healing modality that we're developing, which isn't really, I don't want to say we're creating it because there are already people doing something very similar to this, but it's in the same family, is finding where in the body they are storing those stories.
Yes.
And then giving the body permission to stop telling them.
Yes.
Like you are your own echo chamber. And I just need to open a window and let the story out. Give it expression. Say, thank you for serving me. Thank you for protecting me. Thank you for having my best interest at heart, but you are no longer needed and you're free to go.
That's your lizard.
And finding the place in the body that those are stored and then using our energy or our words to just like say, hey, this isn't happening anymore.
Right.
You can let go of it. And then all the body pains that are a result of that story continually being told on repeat kind of have no reason to hang around. Exactly.
I love this. I love this. I'm getting lots of validation these days. Like, as I said, I sat with trying to move my own energy and tapping into some new people that I have not learned from yet. And all of a sudden, a bunch of channels like opened, ideas opened. And I love when that happens. And then I just start paying attention, but I'm getting validation on this very thing. And it has to do with people that have told me of physical ailments. And then I'll say something. And I mentioned this last time, but it's getting deeper where I'll be more specific. And all of a sudden it's like, yes, but once they tap into it too, once they like feel into that space and relate it to the thing that I said, the person that maybe is in their life, or it's like, it's weird. It'll move. The pain moves. It moves out of the way. It'll go back to, like you were saying, I think you worked on the person where the wrist and it wasn't the wrist, but it came all the way up.
Yeah, she was feeling it in her wrist, but then I told her it was coming from her back and her shoulder blade.
Yeah.
Area, and that's where she was feeling it, but the pain wasn't there. It was, that's our 50 minutes.
50 minutes.
Well, and that even happened on our patron call.
Yes.
Like I said, like right when we were ending, she was like, "Oh, I have this one pain in my body," and I was like, "Well, here are the things about your life story that map onto that part of your body." And by the time I just got done listing those things, she was in tears.
Yep.
And I was like, "Oh, this is the beginning of every single healing experience we are going to have." Is they come and say, "Here's the thing that's wrong with me," and we'll say, "Okay, well, here's what this means. Here's the story. Here's all that stuff that's feeding into this, and so let's dig into that."
I know. And so this is really exciting, people. If you are not a patron subscriber yet, you should definitely do it. Simply for the very reason, like, you get some very in-depth one-on-one stuff from Ryan and I. Like, it's a continuation of this.
It's work. It's real work on you. It's like, I don't know why I even had the idea that a weekly call would be part of the things that people get, but we really zoned in on, hey, you get to be our guinea pigs for us to do this healing stuff on, which means that like you get weekly healing sessions,
opportunities. Yeah.
It's really cool. And I'm actually really grateful going into the gratitudes, because we're almost done with this episode. I'm really grateful that we actually have the patrons that we do.
Right.
Like I really, I this may be something that happens anytime you start a Patreon campaign, is you really start convincing yourself that no one's going to sign up for this. No one's going to give
how I feel.
their dollars for this thing. Like, you have imposter syndrome, and it's not even really a thing yet because it's not off the ground and you're still figuring it all out. But, but you know, then we open up the Patreon campaign, and then now we have patrons, and we're talking to them every Tuesday, and we're actually starting to have some real, like there's some goofiness that happens on these calls, but there's always some real life stuff. And then we get to follow up the next week and be like, how are you doing? And then we have that Facebook page where we can get, like, throughout the week be like, okay, well, here are my thoughts on this, and keep the conversation going. It's really cool to see that we're already starting to see a difference made in people's lives, a real difference, a tangible, quantifiable, trackable difference made in these people's lives by what we're doing.
Yes.
That blows my mind. I was going to say I was grateful for the garden because it lent itself to this whole conversation. I was grateful for, like, the fact that I'm drinking the cucumber water with the cucumber that I grew in my garden. But no, I'm thankful for the fact that we have the patrons that we have. Not just patrons, but the specific ones who have signed up so far.
You know,
have
and
been, like,
this
the perfect ones to start this journey with us.
Well, and I'm grateful, yes, because I'm grateful for the unfolding of all of this. I'm thinking in my mind that I cut you off, and so I've lost my thought.
No, I'm done.
But I'm grateful. Oh, see, I did it again.
You're cutting yourself off.
I'm cutting myself off. Why do I do this? Why do I lose my train of thought? Oh, I like that we show people that we're human here. Like, we talk about all this stuff and how to be the observer on our minds, but yet both of us sit in, we don't have any Patreon subscribers. Nobody's going to subscribe, blah, blah, blah. Like, we sit in the same shit that we're talking about, right?
Yeah, we get mucky at least once an episode.
Yes. And so but I think, and here's the crazy thing is, this is what I was going to say I'm grateful for is, and it just, this was not it, but this is what came to me right at this very moment, is that we set our intention to just be open and available to our tribe, that our tribe would find us. Like, in the very beginning in all of this, we said, yeah, we'll let people know what we're doing, but overall, we're not going to spend a lot of time and energy into, like, gaining
marketing
numbers. Yeah.
Right.
And we really haven't. It's like I'll every now and then plug something out there, and it's more because I just love what we're putting out there and I want people to hear this.
Right.
But we set the intention that the people that need us will show up. The people that need us will find us. Mm-hmm. And it's like, even though we're sitting in that space of nobody's going to sign up, because we set that intention with our soul mind and with our hearts, that's what's happening, regardless of being in the muck sometimes in the ego mind. And I love that. And I'm grateful that it's sort of like this, in this whole conversation just proves this, that it's this awareness is just incredibly valuable.
You know what phenomenon you're naming right now? This thing is growing on its own. And it grows more when we get out of our own way and stop stopping it from growing.
RTA.
We
Seriously, write that down.
We got the planter, we got the soil, and it's going to grow on its own. We just have to stop thinking that we're the thing making it growing.
Yes.
We are cultivating the growth of the True North tribe by pouring into it. But we are not the engine behind the growth. Mm-hmm. And I think when we really, when it grows the most and grows the fastest, is when we get out of our own way and just let it do its thing. We have made an it.
It's funny.
And it has taken on a life of its own. Yeah,
it has. I have a whole class on getting out of your own way, and you just totally changed the whole content.
Well, you're welcome.
No, that's like a class I think we now need to co-teach.
Yes. With gardening, soul gardening.
Yes. Oh, uh-huh.
I keep seeing you write things down.
Oh, you should see these notes. Yes, they're like. Uh-huh.
Wait, is that all handwriting? Is that all yours? That looks typed.
There's some typed because I typed out our episode list.
Oh, because I like very formatted. Like your lines are all straight, and
but then there's margins. Notes all around everywhere. Which it's in pencil though, because it. Nerd alert. Pencils actually, because you can feel that texture, create deeper neurons.
You really need to play with my Remarkable tablet. I haven't said anything about it because I'm like, they're going to be our sponsor. They're not going to be our sponsor. I am very convinced that Remarkable is never going to sponsor this podcast. So
Marigolds.
I'm just going to talk about
Marigolds.
I don't want them to sponsor our podcast.
Okay,
this product is like $600. No one's going to buy it even if they do.
Well, that's true. But wouldn't it be fun if they gave us one to give away?
Okay. I'm going to email them about that then.
What did you call it? Soul gardening. See, don't distract me.
Soul gardening. It's called it's a digital tablet, but it has a layer that feels like paper. And the tip is made to be sensitive to it. So when you write on it, you can like not only feel it, but you can hear. Like it sounds like you're writing on paper, and it feels like you're writing on paper. And it's not pixels, so it's not a grid. It's like this little e-ink thing.
Yeah.
So it looks like you're drawing on paper. It is as close to a paper experience without actually being paper as possible.
Then I probably would enjoy it.
And then it also syncs to the cloud, and you can have the stuff on your phone, and it translates your handwriting to text.
Right? Like that's the thing about taking these notes is I have about 15 notebooks right now.
Yes, and it's the best of both worlds because you have the physical, like kinetic experience of writing on paper, but then you have all the benefits of digital, like you can actually.
But we're not talking about them because they're not sponsoring us.
I just fucking pitched them. I don't care if someone wants to shell out a shit ton of money on one of these suckers. I only got it because I pre-ordered it for a highly discounted rate. I don't even know that I would pay full price for it.
But remarkable, if you are listening
then
and you want me to be an associate for your product, like to convince me that something is as good as pencil and paper, I would definitely be willing to try your product.
It is a great product. They just need to bring it down a couple $100. Okay.
All right.
Anyway, that was the worst pitch I've ever done for someone who's not sponsoring us. We love you all, and go muck yourselves.
Bye.